as sad as to say, I do think they should give their reason as to why they think that, and I want to make it clear, I don't believe that at all.
Right.
I think all Muslims are great. If they thought, all black people were murderers, I'm like, I want to hear your reason behind it,
Uh-huh.
But, the thing about freedom of speech, you can't just take the good, you can't just take the bad, you got to take them both, know?
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for stopping by here already. I just set up and you're already here. That's great.
Yeah.
So first of all, what is your? Do you mind giving me your name?
No, I don't mind at all. Oneel.
Oneel?
Yes.
Okay. How do you spell that?
Oneel.
Oneel. All right. Cool. I'm Nate, by the way. I don't know if you saw the sign or not, but
I just thought of YouTube and I was just like, I definitely want to get on.
all right. Cool. Well, hey, maybe you'll be YouTube famous here. After a little while. All right, so Oneel, I assume you're a student here?
Yes.
Okay, cool. What are you studying?
Industrial engineering technology.
Industrial engineering technology. Really cool. My younger brother actually graduated from Purdue with a degree in aeronautical engineering technology,
Okay,
I think.
yeah.
So, similar sort of field there. Cool. What do you like about that? Or, well, I guess first of all, are you enjoying it? And if so, what do you like about it?
I'll be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm a senior now, so
Okay.
I'm finishing up. When I was first coming to college,
Mm-hmm.
I've never. The truth is, when it comes to making money, I don't really care about my personal happiness. When I went to college, I went to school and I said, "Hey, what's the only thing that I'm willing to go to school for 4 years that makes me a lot of money?"
Okay.
The first thing was business, but I feel like with an engineering degree, what business is gonna say no? You cannot come work for us, So it's like, So I feel like I'm knocking out, two birds with one stone or something like that.
Yeah.
So I went for engineering, and I feel like I can go into business, and even if I don't like engineering, I can get any other job that I really want, that doesn't need a major or a degree or anything.
You
like
kind of
that.
proved yourself as being a pretty capable person if you graduate with an engineering degree, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Cool. All right. So you're a senior. So got to figure out life's next steps and everything like that. That can be a tricky, tough time in life. So I wish you luck in that.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, generally what I do with these interviews and what my channel is all about is something called street epistemology.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard of that or not, but...
And not the epistemology part. I don't know what that is.
Okay. So epistemology is like a fancy philosophy term that basically means the study of knowledge and how we know things, and like a person's epistemology is kind of like how they evaluate things and come to believe or not believe certain things. Basically all about how we know what we know or believe what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like to interview people about is something that they believe generally strongly in. It could be any sort of thing that you believe. Some people like to talk about religious claims. Some people like to talk about political claims. Could be science. Could be something about school or your life. But anything that you feel really strongly about that you're pretty confident in is something that we could have a discussion about.
Well, okay, so I'll give you the broad answer to everything you just said. But I will say you probably have to be more specific because all those things are so broad,
Right, yeah. So that's why I like to leave it up to the person I'm interviewing to bring some sort of a claim that they're like feel pretty confident in. So is there anything that's kind of you've been thinking about a lot recently? It could be something happening in the news that you have an opinion on. It could be any sort of thing that you want to talk about, really. What?
Andrew Tate?
Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will
do you have a belief about Andrew Tate or a claim about him?
I can state that, but
Okay.
I will say when it comes to like freedom of speech, I am like a huge advocate for freedom of speech. So like even if I necessarily agree or disagree with somebody what somebody says, I would still fight for them to be able to say whatever they said, because like if we didn't have the freedom to say whatever we wanted, I feel like that would just ruin everything. That's the best thing in America that we have that most of the countries who have anything near close to freedom that we have, they don't have. They don't have the freedom of speech.
Okay.
So what I love about Andrew the most, although he's really hated, the one thing I love about Andrew the most is the fact that he's willing to stand up for his beliefs and not let what other people think about him like sway that or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, they can say I don't agree about this little thing that he said, but I think the majority of the arguments for the people who do disagree with him is his tone and how he portrays himself. But at the same time, sorry,
just a second. No, we're good. I took a picture of you instead of starting video. Hold on. That's entirely my fault. Sorry. That's okay. So, yeah. That's all right. Okay. What I'm hearing you kind of say is that freedom of speech is really important.
Yes.
Is that like is that a claim that you would like to explore, or and is that how you'd want to phrase it, or is there something else you want to say about freedom of speech that you believe strongly?
Well, think of it. When you think of slavery and stuff like that, how did we get from being slaves to having all the opportunities that a black man has in America now? By protesting. What do you do with protests? You speak. So if we couldn't say the things that we really wanted in life, we wouldn't get anywhere. I think that's the powerful thing about America. Sure, a lot of people have opposing point of views, but I don't think that's the problem. I don't think people were never meant to be the same. Like if they wanted, whatever you believe, I believe in God, but if Jesus Christ wanted 1,000 Oneels, he would have made 1,000 Oneels to think exactly like me. But no, he made everybody differently. So we're supposed to have our different point of views, I think the problem is now that we can't come together and just talk and realize that we do have like opposing point of views and we don't share the same beliefs.
Okay. Yeah, and I very much agree with that. And that is an important reason why I do these interviews, is getting people to be able to talk to each other. So I very much hear you about the importance of being able to communicate and talk to each other and have conversations and discussions like that.
Yes.
So let me kind of just try to recapture a little bit of what you've been saying so far. So you mentioned that freedom of speech allows for like societal change.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I think that was one of the main things you said. Also that not everyone is the same. That I don't know if you maybe the world would be a more boring place or something like that if everybody was the same.
It
Okay. And then the importance of communication and being able to have conversations like we're having right now, where people can talk about stuff openly and honestly and not feel like they're being judged for it. But can still have disagreements, right? Would you say disagreements are still important?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not like we all have to agree, right?
That's like one of the strongest things I base all my friends on. If we can disagree on something but still respect each other and have that friendship, I think that's a very strong, thing about a relationship,
Yeah, that makes sense, right? It's easy to be friends with somebody who you agree with everything on.
Exactly.
Maybe those friendships we have that are with people we disagree with on many things, maybe those are somewhat more stronger?
I think
valuable,
so.
Maybe? Okay.
Because that you can say something that doesn't necessarily affect them. You're not going to obviously attack them, but you can say something about how you feel, and then you can get their honest point of view, because they're not worried about the friendship ending over you saying the wrong thing,
Right. Okay, cool. So before we really dive in and we kind of look at some of these reasons, so if the claim is freedom of speech is important or is needed, how strongly do you feel about that, or how confident are you that that is true?
I think I'm really confident about that, and I'll say this. So I would say 90% of the problems that we have in America is the fact that I think there's one group speaking about how they feel things should be, and then one group speaking about the logical way of things should be,
Okay.
And I think that it's like water and oil, they'll never go together. We could talk about the couldas, the shouldas, the wouldas all day long, but yet it doesn't affect the what is.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you saying is that it's something kind of going along with this whole freedom of speech thing is that what is real, what is true matters. Okay. So on a scale from 1 to 7, kind of like 1 is strongly disagree and 7 is strongly agree, 4 is somewhere in the middle. How important is it for you to believe in true things?
7.
7.
Okay.
7. So like strongly agree, very much want your beliefs to be true.
Yeah.
And then Also, from a scale of 1 to 7, how confident are you that freedom of speech is important?
7.
Also 7.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So very strong feelings on both of those things. The truth is important, and also freedom of speech is important.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's kind of like go through a few of these reasons that you kind of gave earlier, if that's okay.
Yeah.
First of all, if at any point you've got to go,
Oh
and
no, actually, Wednesdays are my free day, so I'm just supposed to go do homework, and I have a job that I'm doing this project for, and I'm about to go, meet up with a professor, but it's on my time, so you're not in a rush at all.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you know that we can stop at any time, or at any point you're like, I don't really want to do this anymore. I feel uncomfortable. We can stop whenever. All right. To quick recap, ability to make change in society was one of those reasons why freedom of speech is important. Not everyone is the same. That was one of those things you said. And maybe that kind of goes along with the ability to communicate with people. Communication and being able to talk about things we disagree about is important. Mm-hmm. Which one of those things, maybe communicating with people we disagree about or making change in society, which one of those do you think is a stronger reason, a more main reason for...
Could you state those two things that are different?
So the ability to make change in society, right? Like you mentioned, like, the progress that like Black people in America have made over the centuries or decades. Mm-hmm. And then being able to communicate honestly with people we disagree about. Maybe those are like kind of the two main things we've talked about so far. Yeah,
I think they're both important towards like different goals. Like the second one, talking to somebody that you disagree with. Mm-hmm. When I talk to my friends about what I disagree with, what I do is I'll set aside my personal beliefs, I'll be as open-minded as possible, and then I'll say, why is it that you believe in the way that you do, because I always want to know that. And if they can give me a genuine reason, that's not based on feelings, because I really don't, like, how you feel is great, but we're not going to get to a solution with how you feel. We're going to get to a solution with facts, So how you feel doesn't really matter. So it's, what's the facts? Give me some tangible facts as to why you believe in what you believe, And then if we can talk about that and not simply how you feel, then we can get to somewhere, And that's what I was saying. When you talk about two people, who with different point of views, and they're talking about something that they disagree with, they have to bring tangible facts to the table. Okay. Because if it's just feelings, like I was saying before, arguing logic, you're just not going to get anywhere. Okay. So this is kind of a funny question that you're bringing up the whole idea of facts are really important when communicating with each other and that sort of thing. Yeah. Do you think it is a fact that freedom of speech is important? Yes, I do think so. Okay. What makes it factual? The fact that, you see, it's like, think of all, like, here, I'll bring up the biggest one, or the one that comes to my mind, It's Jesus Christ came on earth, and I'm not saying this to make it religious, but Jesus Christ came on earth, and he was stating his point of views, why he think God is God, and why he's, the Son of God. The average person could say that's not true, or it's true, but at the same time, it's like, instead of saying that's not true, hear his reasoning for why he thinks that, even though you may disagree, and then think about like 2,000 or 3,000, however old you think this world is. Now we're still talking about that, so it means he had such an effect on everything that we believe to where we're talking about it now. They made books. So are you kind of saying that in order to, have a discussion about what happened in the past or who Jesus might have been, you would need to talk about facts and have like evidence and reasoning? Is that what you're saying, or? That too. I guess what I was mainly trying to say is, before Jesus opened his mouth and started speaking, nobody knew what he had to say or his beliefs. And then once he opened his mouth, and it doesn't have to be specifically about religion, but now you can see... Could be anybody, exactly. Right? Not just Jesus. Yeah. But, okay. And now you see how he believes, and then you can then say why you don't think what he believes is true. It doesn't have to be specifically Jesus. It can be anyone. Anybody, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if we're gonna have conversations about what is true, we need to be talking more about facts than feelings, or logic over emotions, or however you might want to put that. Yeah. Okay. So you're saying, so we flushed that out a little bit. So do you feel like that is the more significant reason why freedom of speech is important, as opposed to making change, or are they kind of tied together, you think? I would say they're tied together. If everybody thought the same, there would be no change because it would just be what everybody already thinks.
True.
And I think one of the things that make America so strong and the reason why we're always growing, even though some people might think that some people might think, oh, America's this terrible place where people are always fighting. I have some news for them. It's like, besides America, it really doesn't get any better than this. And there's countries who would die to come here. And I'm not even born in America, and I know the opportunities that we get here. And I don't think America's this terrible place. I think it's a pretty amazing place if you ask me.
And that could be a whole other topic of conversation we could have sometime too.
Yeah.
Okay, so freedom of speech is important, partially to the ability to make change and communicate with facts and logic and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What do you think you could learn, something that you don't currently think is true, but something that maybe you could learn in the future that you think would maybe make you question that, and maybe you think, oh, you know what, maybe talking about feelings is more convincing and can make change more than logic?
It's almost like asking me, like, and I'm not. It's a great question. I don't mean to downplay.
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. It's okay. I'll take feedback.
It's almost like asking, like, could you ever think back to a time when, like, using emotions instead of logic got you to a better solution than logic would have? And I can never think of that. I could never think of that because logic has always gotten me to a better solution than using my feelings. But I do understand the question, like, what is it that I could learn that would change my mind on freedom of speech per se? Is that what you were basically asking?
Yeah, I was kind of getting there first, starting with the feelings thing, but we can go straight to that. Okay. Yeah, is there anything you think you could learn that would make you think, maybe freedom of speech isn't 7 out of 7 important. Maybe it's a little less important than I thought.
I will say, no, I don't think of anything, but maybe that's just me being closed-minded.
Okay.
But I personally can't think of anything that would make me change that, like, think differently, that freedom of speech shouldn't be allowed, or it's not the best thing or most important thing.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm wondering, like, if somebody was opposed to freedom of speech, like let's say, like the Chinese Communist Party, I think they're opposed to a lot of freedom of speech, right? Trying to wonder, like, what kind of reasons did they have for not letting the people who live in that country have a lot of freedom of speech?
No, I could see where they're coming from.
Okay, where do you think they're coming from there?
So it's a level of power. You see,
okay,
you gotta understand the top 1%, the people who control America or the whole world, if you will say, it's just a select few of people. The majority and the people who are not in power, we outweigh them by 10,000 or 100,000 to 1, if not a million to 1. So if we ever came together and we said we want this instead of that, and it didn't benefit them, or it was at their detriment, then they would suffer. Because if the people actually came together and we said we want this, then we would get that. What is it? Divided we fall, united we stand. If the people ever, like in China or Russia,
you got like 1 billion people over there, right?
Yeah. If they came together and they fought back, what is it? Putin in office over there?
That's Russia, yeah. Russia, yeah.
He would, fall in an hour, in my belief, or if not minutes, if the people came together. But as long as he keeps them divided, you can argue that in any country.
Yeah. So people who maybe are opposed to freedom of speech or think it's not important, maybe those are people who they recognize that it's powerful and they don't want people to have that power because they already have the power.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just add one more thing. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, you're fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would say in America, I don't think the politicians or the people in power are afraid of freedom of speech. That's why they give it so freely, because they know that they have the power regardless. If that makes sense.
Yeah, at least ideally, right? In America, the power is supposed to derive from the people, and we have a democracy, and people are supposed to vote and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So, freedom of speech is important. I think maybe we added another reason there because it's powerful. Maybe that's not really a separate reason, right? It's still part of that ability to make change, right? So it can be a force for change. It could be can hold the powerful accountable.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay, so maybe we've thought about maybe a reason to think that. It might, depending on is important, it might depend on who you are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like freedom of speech is good. That would be a claim that maybe some of those like powerful people and, running, more authoritarian countries would disagree with, right? But for maybe the exact same reasons, maybe they'd have the same reasons you do, but we think it's good because, we're not dictators, right?
Yeah, and I understand both sides. I can see why both sides do it. It's more so that like, if the people that live there could think whatever they want, then they could start to spread their ideas, and that's how people fall,
Yeah, could it be that giving people freedom of speech might allow them to spread bad ideas or harmful ideas?
Exactly. Because,
so do you think that's true?
Yes.
Okay. So what if somebody said, like maybe even somebody in America said, we shouldn't have so much freedom of speech because the ideas that some people have are bad and are harmful, and maybe they could convince people to do bad things.
I would say putting any limits on freedom of speech is like taking away freedom of speech together, Okay. I think you either have it all or you have none of it, and it kind of brings me back to, I don't mean to go back to Andrew Tate or anything like that. I know he's controversial.
I don't really know much. I think I might have heard the name, so I don't even know who he is.
I will say us millennials, we love him. Well, they either love him or hate him, but he lives rent-free. I guess the people in my generation,
okay,
they basically you would say that's the millennials, right? Or that's not the millennials?
I don't know how you're like what 22 or 23 years old. I'm
22 years old.
You might still be a millennial.
Okay,
maybe.
I don't know. I'm not really familiar with that.
I'm a millennial. I know that. I'm right in the middle of it. So,
but like I said, it's like when he talks, he just doesn't take any consideration to how people feel, and I really respect that about him. People say his tone and stuff like that, but I'm like, no, screw that. Like say what you feel, and if somebody feels some type of way about it, that's their problem. Not yours.
Interesting. Well, maybe that's something else we could come back to is how people communicate. Yeah. Because certainly the freedom to say what you want is maybe different from how people react to what you say, right?
Yeah.
Now. Can we think of any times where your freedom of speech is limited? You kind of said it was like an all or nothing sort of thing. Are there any things you can't say, like maybe in certain circumstances?
I can think of many.
Okay, what are some?
So like, depending on the level of the friendship I have with somebody, perfectly determines what I can say and what I cannot say.
Oh, okay, like interpersonally. Okay,
Yeah.
I was more thinking like when I think of like freedom of speech, I think of like what the government says we can and cannot do.
Oh,
that's probably my fault for not clarifying that.
Okay.
But maybe is that more what you mean? Like people should be able to talk to like their friends about anything they want, or people should be legally allowed to say whatever.
I was just talking about in general. That's why I said it was kind of a broad
Okay,
topic. Yeah,
gotcha.
That's why I
okay,
understand.
yeah, that's sometimes if we don't really nail down exactly what we mean by different words, there can be some confusion. Okay, so what are there any times when the government says you can't say anything?
I don't think so. Unless you're saying like I want to bomb the president or something like that.
Yeah, threats of violence.
Yeah.
Right. Or like a classic example is like yelling fire in a crowded theater to create like a stampede. Right.
Yeah.
So are those times when our freedom of speech is limited, but you still think we have freedom of speech, right? Or not?
I don't think it's like, okay, so what I'm about to say, I'm going to have to give an explanation after it.
That's okay. That's all right.
Okay, so only when it's not at the detriment of others, So when if I'm at a movie theater and somebody says, somebody has a gun, now I have to run for my life because I'm afraid that I'm going to die, But I feel like if I say, I don't agree with this person because of this, they're gonna be like, oh, that's at the detriment of him because he might go commit suicide. Or he might go hurt himself or think a different way. I don't believe in that second part, but I do believe in the first part.
Okay.
Meaning it's at direct detriment to that person because their life is in direct effect, because if that person's telling the truth, they can die.
So maybe like you don't think you're responsible for how somebody else maybe emotionally reacts to what you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
And of
But
course,
maybe you would be responsible if you cause a stampede.
Exactly.
in a theater, right? Okay. And so maybe we should have restrictions on that. So speech should be protected. People should have the freedom of speech, except maybe if that speech is directly causing harm in some way. All right. Are there any examples of somebody's speech possibly causing harm, but it's like a really gray area? Can you think of something like that?
It's really interesting you say that, because I was just thinking, maybe I have to give some clarification about what I just said, because like if somebody preaches the truth and then people will start arguing and fighting over it, would I then believe that's at their detriment and it could cause harm? Because that is an interesting take on it.
Yeah, like if somebody says, I don't believe this. Okay, just so it's clear. Like, somebody said something like, Muslims are terrorists and they shouldn't be here and they shouldn't be allowed in the United States and we should put them in prison. We should put all Muslims in prison because they're all a bunch of terrorists or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Should that sort of speech be protected or not, you think?
As sad as to say, I do think they should give their reason as to why they think that, and I want to make it clear, I don't believe that at all.
Right.
I think all Muslims are great. If they thought, all black people were murderers, I'm like, I want to hear your reason behind it, But, the thing about freedom of speech, you can't just take the good, you can't just take the bad, you got to take them both, know?
Yeah. And that might be different, somebody saying that like in a kind of political statement versus somebody like gathering up their friends and saying, hey, we're going to go kill some Muslims or kill some black people tonight, right?
Yeah.
Like, then, that might be a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
But then, if they're saying it, there's I have a tough time with that too. Like, if there's a fine line between like somebody allowing people to say really awful things, right? Because they have their freedom of expression.
Yeah.
Versus allowing people to like incite other people to do awful things.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that. I don't know. Do you have thoughts on like where we draw the line?
I will say that it's a bit confusing, only because it's like people, we fight over dumb things, you know? And if two groups have an opposing point of view, that's what leads to a lot of wars, So it's so funny. It's like words could be used for like, telling somebody you love them, treating somebody right, but it could also be used to start wars and kill hundreds, if not millions of people, So...
Yeah, sometimes our words are maybe more than just expressing what we think. Sometimes words could lead to consequences, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess on the other side is there anything? I guess you're at a 7 out of 7, so you probably can't really get more confident in this claim, can you?
No.
But I'm just wondering if there would be anything that would make us even more confident that freedom of speech is important or should be protected.
I'll say this: I don't necessarily think freedom of speech necessarily leads to success. Like I said that, I guess you could say, basically the Western Hemisphere, that's where the freedom of speech is the most popular. You can't say. I wouldn't say freedom of speech is directly tied to success, meaning that if a country got freedom of speech, that it would change, their economic value or anything like that.
But maybe if we learned that was true, right? If we had like a country that has formerly been like for example, maybe usually so many other things change too. But let's just say, for example, you had a country where it was very authoritarian, people didn't have very many freedoms, they didn't have the freedom of free expression that we have that's protected by the First Amendment, right? But then there was a change in that country, and they gained that right, they gained that protection for their freedom of speech. And then if we saw that country really prosper, maybe that would make us even more confident that it's important or valuable or should be protected.
Yeah.
Do you agree or not?
I do agree. What I was just thinking was, so let's say someone like Russia.
Yeah.
I'd say the main reason why they're afraid, or they're so hesitant. I wouldn't use the word afraid. Maybe they're not afraid. They're a bit hesitant on giving people certain freedom of speech is because I think once they give somebody just an inch, I think everybody else will just start reaching for a mop. Then the ball starts rolling. Because then they'll start to ask for more. You gave us this, but why can't we have this? So, and I'm not saying the people wouldn't have a good reasoning as to why they deserve that. But to answer your question specifically,
yeah, if we saw a country give their population freedom of speech, and then that country became more prosperous, would that make us more confident that freedom of speech is important?
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah. Sorry, sometimes I'm not very clear on exactly what the question is, so it helps to repeat that.
Yeah.
Okay. So opposite, we're going to turn that question right around. I think I kind of already asked it once, but I think we have better understanding of what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
Is there something you think you could learn that would make you think that maybe make you a little bit less confident that freedom of speech should be protected or valuable or is valuable? Something that maybe moving from a 7 to a 6.9.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would even say something that would make me move from a 7 to a 1. How about that?
Oh, wow.
If at the detriment of humanity.
Okay.
Meaning, if humanity were to go to war and we all die, and then we have nobody else left on Earth, that would be a very strong one.
If somehow we knew that it was because of freedom of speech.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I'm trying to imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, if we knew definitively that freedom of speech led to, great harm, including like the extinction of the human race, that would. Yeah, I think I would also move to 1 if that happened. I'm trying to imagine that actually being something that would happen, but okay.
I'll give you a bit of an example.
Okay.
Adam and Eve, we went from being all good and pure to being the all-knowing being who wasn't pure anymore,
Okay. Yeah, and that's yeah, you've brought up religious stuff a few times, so maybe that's another thing we could talk about sometime.
Yeah.
But we don't have to talk about it right now, though. But we could go into that too if you wanted to.
It's completely up to you. We can talk about whatever. Like,
all right.
I'm a very, I'm a very open-minded person.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything's on the table. I don't have anything that would make me angry per se.
Mm-hmm.
I actually love the friends that I can have a conversation about anything with.
Yeah.
And we just go all in. I love it. They'll tell me why I'm wrong, and I'll be like, dang, I didn't know this.
Yeah. I really love that about college.
Yeah.
Like when I was in college, like we got to have a lot of those kind of conversations with people, and you don't get as much of that anymore when you're older. And sorry, I'm not that old. I'm like 34.
Yeah.
But it is pretty cool. So it's part of the reason why I'm out here doing it. I really enjoy it. So
I'll say my bad.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I'll say you're in Indiana. I think you'll have more openness and stuff like that to hearing all point of views. But I'll say like this is Purdue Fort Wayne. We're a pretty conservative college, meaning we're not as liberal or anything like that. So a lot of people here, they actually share the same point of views for the most part. I remember like I had this friend. She was a female, and sorry, I'm trying to think of exactly what she said. I know a lot of females were for the vaccine. I don't know why. I'm not specifically tying that to females, but a lot of females that I know just are for it, and they wanted to get it, to prevent the COVID and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention that.
No, you can talk about anything.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And but she was willing to. Going into her senior year. She was willing to forego all of that just so she didn't have to get the vaccine because she was so strongly against it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely felt passionate about something there. So, okay. Well, how do you think this conversation went?
I think it was great. But yeah.
And then Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Anything else you want to follow up with there is fine.
No. So I was gonna say I thought it was great. I guess the one thing, and it's not that this interview was bad or you didn't do anything right, but I would say have things to like kind of challenge, because I know like I watch a lot of these on like YouTube, and I feel like you either have it all or nothing, as far as in like you either have a good conversation or where like you and the people are kind of like arguing against each other. I guess like some people are like that, but I like a conversation to where like you kind of like challenge them in their belief, and like you say why is it that you believe in that. But I guess what catches people's attention and eye the most is, I guess, the controversial stuff.
Yeah, that's true. If we were yelling at each other, I suppose that might make for better YouTube drama. But yeah, so part of what I'm doing is a way of having conversations and talking about these sorts of things where we aren't yelling and screaming at each other. That's part of the goal here, is to have cordial, polite conversations where somebody gets to feel heard.
Yeah.
But we also, do challenge and push back and ask questions and try to figure out why somebody thinks the things that they think.
Yeah.
So hopefully you felt like you had to really think about some things occasionally. Do you still feel like you're at a 7 out of 7 on freedom of speech should be protected or is important?
I do.
Okay.
Like I said, unless it came to the detriment of humanity, that would be one of the only things that I could think of right now. Maybe some other people gave me some other ideas or anything like that, maybe I would go with it. But for the most part, I stand on everything should be said, and everything should have everybody should have the chance to get their ideas heard.
Okay. So yeah, if you were to become convinced that maybe too much freedom of speech was harmful in some way, maybe that'd make you less confident. Okay. And then also, do you still feel like you're at a 7 out of 7 on wanting to believe true things?
I guess that's one of the things that I guess I said at first, but now that I'm thinking about it, first, believing in true things, it's 100% necessary. But I'm not saying feelings don't come into play. Because everybody has feelings. Although you should live your life on logic. We can't. We're humans at the end of the day. We have feelings.
Yeah. I'm not saying that if you're at 7, then you can't have feelings. I think you can have feelings, but as far as I think what that question is getting at is, whether you value what is true or not, whether the truth matters to you, right? And you're still high on that.
I would say I base a lot of my life around facts and truth, but as far as feelings, I can't really think of too much of my life that I base around feelings.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, Oneel, it was good talking to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for dropping by.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Any other thoughts, or do you have any questions for me right now that I could answer for you?
No. Well, it would depend on what topic we were talking about. You know, because I can go on all day about just depending on the topic. But as far as this, how do you feel about freedom of speech per se?
I think it's really important. I think I agree with you for a lot of the same reasons. I think. I'm not sure if I'm at a 7 out of 7 on it, but I'm probably at least at a 6 out of 7. That freedom of speech should be protected and is important. I can think of like certain circumstances where, like we kind of went through a couple of examples where maybe some speech, telling lies to embezzle money and steal from, I guess maybe then there's theft involved, or like the thing with the fire in the theater, or I think sometimes though people are like really like advocating like violence against like groups of people, or against like people wanting to go overthrow the government, which is a thing that happened almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
I think some of that kind of speech could rise to being like maybe we wouldn't want to protect all of that speech, but I think in general, I agree that the freedom to express yourself is really important. So I think I'm pretty close to where you are on that.
No, so. I agree. And even the reason why you would say you're a 6 not a 7, I agree on those points too. As far as like at it being at a detriment towards like the politicians, as far as overthrowing the government and stuff like that, I do agree.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you want, I might see if we can get somebody else to be interviewed. But if you want to come back and talk about one of those other things that's on your mind too, I'd be happy to interview again.